There's something different about people who don't use TikTok. Maybe it's the way they can sit through an entire conversation without their eyes glazing over after 30 seconds. Maybe it's how they seem to generate their own entertainment instead of waiting for an algorithm to serve it to them. Or maybe it's that strange ability to be bored without immediately reaching for their phone to make the feeling go away. Because choosing not to use TikTok in 2024 isn't just about deleting an app. It's a psychological position that's creating a distinct cognitive profile. Researchers are only now beginning to understand. And trust me, by the end of this video, you're going to see why opting out of the most addictive platform ever engineered has forged some of the most mentally resilient people navigating modern life. These aren't technophobes or digital hermits. They're people who looked at what everyone else was doing and made a different calculation. And that choice is reshaping their brains in ways that might actually matter. Let's start with something most people completely miss about the moment TikTok took over. Picture yourself in March 2020. The world is shutting down. You're stuck at home, and everyone you know is downloading TikTok. Your group chat explodes with links. Have you seen this? This is hilarious. You have to watch this. Your sister spends 3 hours learning a dance. Your coworker, who's normally serious, sends you 15 videos before lunch. Everyone around you has found the same solution to the same problem. Crushing boredom mixed with ambient terror. And you're sitting there, considering it. The app is right there in the store. One tap. Everyone says it's harmless fun, just short videos, just a distraction. But something stops you. Maybe it's the way your friend can't finish a sentence without checking it. Maybe it's watching your nephew scroll for 2 hours straight, his face blank, thumb flicking up in this mechanical rhythm. Maybe you just have a feeling. So you don't download it, and while everyone else disappears into their phones, you sit with the boredom. You sit with the fear. You sit with yourself. What psychologists call tolerance of negative affect, the ability to sit with uncomfortable feelings without immediately seeking relief, was being tested on a global scale. Dr. Anna Lembke at Stanford's Addiction Medicine Clinic identifies this as the critical fork in the road. When faced with distress, we either build the muscle of endurance or we reach for the dopamine lever. TikTok offered the fastest acting lever ever engineered. According to neuroscience research published in 2023, the platform delivers dopamine hits on average every 7 to 12 seconds, faster than any previous medium. People who resisted weren't just avoiding an app. They were choosing a fundamentally different relationship with discomfort. These are adults who, 3 years later, can still sit in a waiting room without entertainment, who can experience boredom without treating it as an emergency. They developed what researchers at the University of Waterloo call attentional sovereignty, the ability to direct their focus rather than having it captured and redirected constantly. While their peers trained their brains to expect stimulation every few seconds, they trained theirs to generate interest from within. That psychological difference compounds daily. It shows up in their ability to read long articles, have lengthy conversations, and tackle projects that require sustained focus. Not because they're superior, but because their brains haven't been restructured by the most effective attention capture system ever built. Now, let's talk about what happens in the smaller moments, the ones that seem insignificant, but actually reveal everything. Imagine you're sitting in a doctor's office. The appointment is running 20 minutes late. You're in one of those uncomfortable chairs, surrounded by people, and everyone, literally everyone, is staring at their phone, scrolling with that specific thumb motion, that hypnotic flick, flick, flick. The room is silent except for the occasional exhale of air through someone's nose, the physical laugh that doesn't quite make it to their face. You pull out your phone, check your messages. Nothing. Check email. Nothing urgent. And then you just put it away. You look around the room. You notice the art on the walls. You watch people. You think about what you need to do later. You let your mind wander. Maybe you feel slightly awkward. slightly exposed, without the phone shield everyone else is holding up. But you sit there, present, aware, bored, yes, but conscious. Neuroscientist Dr. Marcus Reichel discovered what he calls the default mode network, the brain regions that activate when we're not focused on external tasks. This network is responsible for memory consolidation, self-reflection, imagination, and connecting disparate ideas. It requires what seems like nothing: unfocused time. Research from the University of Central Lancashire found that people who regularly experience boredom show enhanced creativity and problem-solving abilities. But the default mode network needs approximately 8 to 12 minutes of unstructured thought to fully activate. TikTok users never give their brains those 8 to 12 minutes. They're scrolling. These people solve problems in the shower, during walks, in those in-between moments everyone else is filling with content. They have ideas that seem to come from nowhere because their brains have the space to make unexpected connections. They remember conversations better because their minds aren't splitting attention between the person in front of them and the potential entertainment waiting in their pocket. What looks like doing nothing is actually their brain doing its most important maintenance work. They've maintained access to a cognitive process that constant stimulation blocks. And that process, the ability to think without external input, might be becoming rare. But here's what's remarkable about how this shows up at home. Picture a Tuesday night dinner. You're sitting with your family or your partner, eating something ordinary. Your teenager starts telling a story about something that happened at school. It's a long story, kind of meandering, not particularly dramatic. And you're listening, actually listening, not glancing at your phone, not thinking about checking it, just there. Your daughter takes 2 full minutes to get to the point. She backtracks, adds details, remembers something else. If you were scrolling TikTok, you'd have consumed 15 different videos in the time it takes her to tell this one story. But you're not scrolling. You're watching her face, hearing the tone changes, noticing what matters to her. And because you're fully present, you catch something, a small hesitation, a shift in her voice that tells you there's more to this story than she's saying. So you ask a follow-up question, and suddenly you're having an actual conversation that goes somewhere unexpected. Dr. Sherry Turkle at MIT has spent 2 decades studying how devices affect conversation. Her research shows that even the presence of a phone on the table, not being used, just visible, reduces conversation quality, empathy, and connection. She calls this continuous, partial attention. But people who don't use TikTok have opted out of training their brains to expect rapid content switching. Research by Dr. Gloria Mark at UC Irvine found that it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully refocus after a distraction. TikTok users are distracting themselves every 30 seconds, meaning they never achieve deep presence. Non-users have maintained the cognitive capacity for sustained, undivided attention. These are people whose relationships are simply deeper. They notice things, the small signals that something's wrong, the subtle joys their kids experience, the way their partner's stress manifests. They're not better people, but they're more present people. And presence is the foundation of real intimacy. While others are half listening, while mentally scrolling through their next dopamine hits, non-users are building connection through the ancient technology of full attention. They're investing in relationships through the simple act of actually being there. And in 10 years, those investment returns, the depth of bond, the trust, the understanding will be substantial. Consider what happens when you're at work, sitting in the break room. 3 coworkers are laughing about something. Did you see that video? Oh my God, yes. The way he... And then someone does an impression, a gesture, a voice, and everyone cracks up. You smile politely. You have no idea what they're talking about. Someone turns to you. Have you seen it? You shake your head. You need to download TikTok, they say. already pulling out their phone to show you. This happens several times a week. At dinner with friends, in group chats, at family gatherings. There's this entire universe of shared references you're not part of. Sometimes you feel left out. Sometimes you wonder if you're missing something important. Sometimes you question whether you're being needlessly stubborn. Everyone else seems to be having fun. Why are you making this harder than it needs to be? But then your coworker spends the next 10 minutes scrolling, trying to find that one video, and you watch their face go blank as they get sucked into the feed. Social psychologist Dr. Jamil Zaki at Stanford studies conformity and social influence. His research confirms what seems obvious. Humans are wired to align with group behavior. We experience genuine distress when excluded from shared cultural experiences. This is adaptive. Throughout human history, being outside the group meant danger. But here's what's fascinating. People who resist social pressure develop what psychologists call autonomous self-regulation. Research by Dr. Kenan Sheldon shows that people who maintain their values despite social costs report higher well-being long-term. The temporary discomfort of being left out builds psychological independence that compounds over time. These people have developed genuine immunity to social pressure. Not complete immunity, they still feel the pull, but they've practiced overriding it thousands of times. They're comfortable being slightly outside the cultural mainstream, which means they're comfortable, period. They don't need external validation to know what's right for them. When everyone adopts the next thing, they can evaluate it independently rather than downloading it because everyone else has. That independence of thought, that ability to go against the current without drowning in anxiety, might be the most valuable psychological trait in an age of viral conformity. They're not contrarians. They're just separate. Now let's talk about how they actually consume content, because they're not monks. They're just doing it differently. Think about what happens when you want to watch something. You don't open TikTok and let the algorithm decide. You make a choice. You think, I want to learn about that thing, or I want to watch that show, or I want to hear music, and then you actively seek it out. YouTube, Netflix, Spotify, you type in what you want. You choose. This seems like a small difference, but watch what happens. You watch a 20-minute video about urban planning. You finish it. You learn something. You move on. Or you watch 3 episodes of a show, and then you stop because you have other things to do. The content doesn't continue automatically, pulling you deeper. There's no algorithm learning your vulnerabilities and exploiting them. You decide when to start, and more importantly, you decide when to stop. Your engagement has clear boundaries because you set them. The platform isn't designed to dissolve your willpower. It's designed to deliver what you asked for and then wait for your next request. Dr. Nir Eyal, who literally wrote the book on building habit-forming products called Hooked, identifies variable rewards as the most powerful element of addictive design. TikTok perfected this. You never know if the next video will be the best thing you've seen all day, or just okay, so you keep swiping. Intentional content consumption removes this variable reward structure. Research by Dr. Adam Alter at NYU shows that when people actively choose what to watch rather than being fed content, they report higher satisfaction, better retention of information, and crucially, they naturally limit their consumption. The content ends, and they stop. Revolutionary. These are people who have maintained agency over their attention. They're not waiting for entertainment to happen to them. They're not gambling for the next dopamine hit. They experience media as something they use rather than something that uses them. And this distinction ripples into every area of their lives. They're people who can pursue a goal without getting distracted, who can be interested in something for more than 45 seconds, who finish books, complete projects, follow through. Not because they're more disciplined, but because their brains haven't been trained to constantly seek the next hit. They've maintained what earlier humans took for granted: self-directed attention. But let's be honest about what they're actually afraid of, because fear drives this choice more than people admit. There's this moment that happens to TikTok users, and you've watched it. Your friend picks up their phone to show you one specific video. "I need to show you this thing," they say. They open TikTok, and then they get lost. They're scrolling, looking for that video, but other videos keep appearing, and their thumb keeps moving, and their attention is just gone. You're sitting right there, waiting, and they're no longer present. "Sorry, hold on," they mutter, still scrolling. 3 minutes pass. 5 minutes. They've forgotten what they were looking for. They've forgotten you're there. You've seen this enough times that you know. That app makes people disappear. Not physically. But the person you were talking to is gone. Replaced by something that looks like them, but isn't quite there. Their eyes go flat. Their face slackens. They're being fed, and they're swallowing, and there's no one home. And you think, I don't want that. I don't want to become that. Whatever that app does, I don't want it doing it to me. Neuroscientist Dr. Andrew Huberman explains that TikTok hijacks the brain's novelty-seeking mechanism. The platform delivers new stimuli faster than any natural environment could, flooding the dopamine system. Over time, this creates what's called dopamine dysregulation. The baseline level drops, requiring more stimulation to feel normal. Dr. Judson Brewer at Brown University has shown that excessive use of social media apps creates the same neural patterns as substance addiction. Non-users have watched this happen to people they love. They've seen intelligent adults lose hours to scrolling, unable to stop even when they want to. That's not weakness. That's neuroscience. And they want no part of it. These people have maintained something precious. A sense of self that exists independent of algorithmic input. They don't need external stimuli to feel like themselves. Their thoughts, interests, and personality aren't being shaped by what an AI decides to show them. They're not becoming a reflection of their feed. This protection of identity, this refusal to let an algorithm rewire their reward systems, shows up as authenticity. They seem more like themselves than people who spend hours daily absorbing content curated to keep them engaged. They're not better people. They're just more them. Unfiltered by algorithmic influence, unsmoothed by constant content consumption, present in their own experience. Now, calculate this with me. The average TikTok user spends 95 minutes per day on the app. That's according to data from 2024. Some spend much more, but let's use that average. 95 minutes daily equals 11 hours per week, 48 hours per month, 580 hours per year. Now picture what you do with those 580 hours. Maybe you read 40 books. Maybe you learned conversational Spanish. Maybe you built something with your hands, got really good at cooking, trained for a marathon, wrote a screenplay that'll never sell, but exists anyway. Maybe you did none of those productive things. Maybe you stared at walls, took long walks, had meandering conversations, lay in your backyard watching clouds move. Either way, those hours belong to you. They're yours. You decided what happened in them. Nobody served you content. No algorithm learned your patterns and showed you exactly what would keep you watching. For one more video, one more video, one more. You had 580 hours this year that were actually yours. This all adds up to something profound. Here's what researchers are starting to notice about people who've successfully resisted TikTok. They can still read books, not just physically decode words, but actually read. Sustain attention through complex ideas. Follow lengthy arguments. Sit with difficult passages without bailing. They can watch films without checking their phones. They can work on projects that take months without losing interest. They can have conversations that last hours without their attention fracturing. This sounds mundane, but it's increasingly rare. Teachers report that students who use TikTok heavily struggle with any task requiring more than a few minutes of sustained focus. Employers notice the same pattern. The ability to maintain concentration, to delay gratification, to sit with difficulty instead of immediately seeking stimulation. These are becoming differentiating characteristics rather than baseline expectations. And people who don't use TikTok have something their peers are losing. They can still do hard things that take time. Not because they're exceptional, because their brains haven't been restructured around intermittent reinforcement every 15 seconds. But let's be completely honest about something. Not all of this is morally righteous. Some people who don't use TikTok are just elitist about it, wearing their abstinence like a badge of superiority. Some are missing out on genuinely creative content, important movements, real communities forming there. The platform has given voice to people who'd be invisible otherwise. This isn't about TikTok being evil or users being weak. This is about what opting out does to your brain when everyone else opts in. That's the psychology of people who don't use TikTok. They've maintained cognitive capabilities that are becoming rare. They can sit with boredom, sustain attention, own their time, protect their identity from algorithmic influence. They're not Luddites or ascetics. They're just people who saw the most sophisticated attention capture system ever engineered and said no, thank you. In a world where average attention spans are measured in seconds, where doom scrolling is a recognized phenomenon, where people can't watch a movie without checking their phones, these people stand as evidence of another way. They hold something the modern world is rapidly losing: the ability to be alone with their thoughts without treating it as an emergency, the capacity to want something and wait for it, the patience to let meaning emerge slowly rather than being served instantly. And in 10 years, when we're all wondering where everyone's attention went, they'll still have theirs. That might matter more than any of us realize.